Welcome to the Patriot Barbie podcast. This show is made possible by Spreely Media. Download the Freedom Hub app today and join the free speech movement. I want to thank the people and the companies that keep my show going. All my sponsors can be found on patriotbarbie.com on my shop page. Century H2O, water systems for your home that provide clean, toxic-free, fluoride-free, and pharmaceutical-free drinking water for your family and pets for under $300. Dylan's Restaurants has been a proud podcast partner for years, and the owner is my personal friend. With 4 locations throughout Arizona, you'll always find one to dine at and love, especially the zoo. Well, especially the ranch. Well, maybe the one floating on Lake Pleasant. Dang it, they're all good. Support your freedom-loving businesses, and please check out Dylan's Restaurants. Small business owners, claim your employee retention tax credit for 2020 and 21 with an accountant you can trust. If you don't know what this is, you could be missing out on hundreds of thousands of dollars. Go to patriotbarbie.com and click on my partners page to read up. My Freedom Cart, a conservative-owned, made-in-America, toxic-free company that lets you shop online and delivers everything to your front door. Clean products, protein, snacks, hair care, makeup, toiletries. Dude, ditch Amazon, keep the perks, and support a pro-life and pro-freedom company. myfreedomcart.com. My Beautiful Smile is brought to you by Dr. Daniel Slyke. His dental team is passionate, detailed, gentle, and clearly very talented. My entire smile has been restored to stunning, and I owe it all to him. He's right here in Scottsdale, and consults are free. Go to patriotbarbie.com, look him up, and schedule your free consultation. Are you worried about spike proteins? If not, you should be. Get the spike formula developed by experts like Dr. Peter McCullough from the Wellness Company by going to twc.health/patriotbarbie. Listeners of my podcast can use code PatriotBarbie at checkout for a discount. You guys, once again, you can find all my partners, my makeup line, my Patriot wine, my merch company, and the Freedom Cart at patriotbarbie.com under the shop page. Now, are you ready to get started? Let's go. Welcome to the Patriot Barbie podcast. I'm your host, Lindsey Graham, author and conservative activist. I love Jesus. I love America. I'm a proud wife, mom of 3, and I'm having bold and witty conversations with America's patriots, the ones that cancel culture desperately want to blacklist. Trust me, I've been there. In 2020, I defied government lockdowns in Oregon, reopened my salon, and became an icon of freedom. I've been targeted by government and raging liberals every day since, and I refuse to back down. Patriots, I'm here to tell you, your values are worth fighting for. The Patriot Barbie podcast starts now. Welcome to the Patriot Barbie podcast. You guys all know that there's a handful of things that I stand for: freedom, patriotism, Jesus, free speech, gun rights, but most importantly, and I think the most important platform that I have and where I have authority and speak with authority and feel that God has led me to speak up about is the pro-life movement, or as mainstream media would call it, the anti-abortion movement. Way to make a negative spin on it, way to take something positive and make it negative. I've spoken out a lot at abortion vigils, prayer meetings, rallies, etc. But one woman that is, in my opinion, leading the charge in America, her common sense, her calm, her statistical, personality when she's debating some of these absolute idiot college students. Her being able to maintain her composure, to me, it's so commendable. And she's my guest today. I'm very, very excited. Kristan Hawkins. She is I'll read her little bio here real quick. She's a Christian. She's a wife, mother, grassroots activist, author, speaker, and a human rights advocate. She's the president of Students for Life of America. She was recruited in 2006 to launch Students for Life of America's full-time operation. Since then, she has built up a small organization made up of a few dozen student groups scattered around the country to a coordinated national team serving more than 1,300 Students for Life chapters in all 50 states. You can follow her on social media. She is Kristan Mercer Hawkins, and we'll put that in the description below. But you'll see she's
constantly viral for speaking up at campuses like Harvard, Dartmouth, UC Berkeley, all the woke colleges full of 21-year-olds that are certain that they know more about life than would a woman and a mother who has children and actually studies this for a living. So I'm really excited to get into what this movement looks like. Please welcome to my show, Kristan Hawkins.
Thanks, Lindsay, for having me on.
You are welcome, girl. I'm like in my on my couch on my phone cheering or going, oh geez, and my husband's like, are you watching Kristan again? I
Yeah.
don't know how you do it, lady.
I have 4 children, so that
Yeah.
helps me have patience for stupid things people say in the course of the
Mm.
day. I asked my husband, I was like, I don't know, I don't consider myself a patient person, but people always say I'm patient. He's like, yeah, because you're used to like people saying crazy things to you here when you go out onto
Hmm.
campuses. But yeah, and it's sad too because since I started doing this about 4 years ago, going onto campuses, speaking for our Students for Life groups, we've really started to even see a change in the culture, and we've kind of
Oh.
gone from Gen Y to Gen Z fully. Where
Hmm.
when I started going to campuses, the most controversial thing I would say would be, um, you know, just don't kill a baby, and they'd say, how dare you. Then it was the most controversial thing I would say is there's a male and a female. And then now the most controversial thing is if you just don't want to get pregnant and you don't want to be, forced to make a decision, whether to choose life or choose adoption or choose abortion, then don't have sex. Very common sense
Pretty
things, but
simple.
then,
Yep.
I remember the first time I said that and like the whole room like erupted, like it was the most controversial thing I said all day. I was like, oh, okay, so that's the new controversy.
Wow. It just
Yeah,
changes. And it's
it does.
just, it's interesting to me. I want to show a clip really quick of
Yep.
one of the most insane debates I've ever seen you do.
I have the right to an abortion in my religion, and
Yep.
it's completely
So in many
discreet.
states that have restrictive laws against abortion, the Temple of Satan is officially suing and asking for injunctions stating that laws that prevent abortion prohibit Satanists from practicing their religion, and meaning that because they believe a woman should be able to sacrifice a child to abortion as part of their religious practice. So do you agree with the Church of Satan?
I believe that, yeah, Church of Satan should be able to do whatever they want. It's a religion, religious freedom. I mean, I believe we're in a free country. I believe in religious freedom.
Well,
And
I
they
mean,
can
hey,
do
you're
whatever
the
they
one who
want.
just had to agree to agree with the Church of Satan.
I
So
mean,
I
I believe we're in a free country, and
Yeah.
we're in America. God
Yeah.
bless America. We're in a free country. We should
Wait,
all
God
be
bless. I think you're pagan.
So,
Yeah.
so
That
this
was actually a really
girl,
sad one because she actually admitted that her sibling had been aborted,
yeah,
and
and
she
she's
wasn't sad
wearing
at
these
all.
bunny ears. Like you're gonna.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna be cruel for a minute, but you want to debate a grown woman. You want to look like you know what you're talking about, like you're smart, like you have the authority to be on this platform, on this microphone, talking to someone who knows more. At least try to look like you might be intelligent. But she's wearing these ridiculous, like I don't know, furry bunny ears, and basically admitting that she thinks America is such a free country. We should all be
Yeah.
allowed to do whatever we want.
Mhm.
We should be able to
Mhm.
kill. We should be able to kill babies. It's a free country. Like she was fully committed to. Well, it's a free country.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So your
Mhm.
friend back there doesn't like you. She's sleeping with your boyfriend. Whatever. Does she have a right to kill you? I mean, because in your world, literally, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and then when you bring that up to them on campus, some sort of scenario like that, "W- what are you talking about? How dare you say that? Why would you bring that up? That's not even what. Where does this even come from? Like that's literally like their response when you bring up, well, can I just kill you, or can you kill me because you don't like me? And it fundamentally in all the arguments, it comes down to the very basic question that we train our students to really get down to on campuses of what is it? Is the preborn, the thing, the embryo, the fetus, the blob of cells, whatever you want to call it,
Hmm.
inside of a woman's womb, is it a life that has value or is it not? And that's
Right.
in all of these arguments, that's what we're debating. Even though they can't actually articulate, that's what they're getting at.
Right. And they can't seem to apply that logic to their own life. Like, you exist, and so do you believe that your life has value? I think you even had a girl one time say
They
something like,
don't.
"I wish I had never been born." And I'm like, "Oh
Yes.
my gosh, you can't."
And this is
If that's
that's
really
a new
true,
thing. That's a new
yeah.
thing. That's a so right after COVID, I remember at University of North Florida, I went, that was my first campus, after the COVID shutdowns, and they wouldn't let me go inside. It had to be outside. It was at night. There was no lights. There were
Oh my
100
gosh.
students that gathered. It was a bit crazy. I had people like dancing behind me, and I kind of gave my lecture, and then I started doing the question and answers. And I'll never forget, there was a gentleman who listened to my entire presentation. He was extremely quiet, very respectful, who got up and said at the end, "Well, by your standards, then I guess I'm a murderer." And so I didn't go into
Mm.
like what he did in his life. And we started having conversations. This is the typical of it's just a clump of cells, it doesn't matter, women have bodily autonomy. And I finally got him to a point where I asked him, do you think, let's just back this up. Do you think your life has value? You yourself, not the baby in the womb that you have no relation to. Uh, does your life have value? And he said, no, my life has no value. And I said, well, what keeps you on the hard days from ending your own life? And I'll never forget, because sometimes students will say things on campus that are just crazy because they don't want to be proven wrong. So, like, I had a student,
Yep.
in Tampa just a week ago tell me I was the same as a cockroach. And I was like, well, you don't actually believe that. Philosophically, I've got you to a point where you either have to admit it or you have to admit you're wrong on abortion. But this gentleman
Right.
said, he said, I don't know. The only thing I guess that keeps me from committing suicide are my cats. And he was serious. It was different than
Wow.
the facetious kind of comments, and that's something, Lindsay, that especially after COVID, I've seen more and more comments like that from young people, that they
Yeah.
actually don't believe that they have value. And really, I kind of stopped the conversation. I said, well, let me affirm you, in case no one has ever told you in your life, you have value, you are
Mhm.
worthy of life, just like how all of us here are equally valuable, have are worthy of life. And I actually have to start all of my conversations now when I go to give a lecture. I always add that into the conversation, because honestly, if you don't think you have value, I'm not
Mhm.
going to win at convincing you that a baby you have no feelings for has value.
Right. That is so sad. That's so sad. And
It's very sad.
it's so unfortunate that mainstream media, of course, not at
Mm,
all surprising, just won't talk about the mental health pandemic, the real pandemic, and
mhm,
what culture and society is already doing to these young minds, specifically Gen
yeah,
Z. And then what COVID did to amplify that, which is
yeah,
isolate and alienate kids. And
that's right.
I think, and I'm sure you're going to agree with me, that it all comes back to we've lost the ability to identify ourselves in Christ. If
Yeah,
we
that's
all
right.
knew, yeah, I mean, if we all had a relationship with Jesus and you knew waking up, I'm not here for my 9 to 5 job, I'm not here for my cats, I'm not
Mhm,
even here for my kids or my husband. I'm here for a
mhm,
purpose that God designed. And that is up to Him to lead. And we have gotten into the hustle and bustle of life and we've destroyed God. We've
mhm,
destroyed, the calling to something bigger to the point where
yeah,
people are saying, I live for my cats.
yeah. No,
That's so
and this is the
sad.
result of a post-Christian culture that we're in.
Mm.
And I think that's why we talk about, sometimes you'll hear pro-life leaders talking about how abortion and the abortion industry and the abortion mindset that we live in is really a symptom of a larger problem that we have in our society, of this
Yeah.
not identifying each other as brothers and sisters who were
Mhm.
created with a purpose and who have value, and simply seeing each other as little utilitarian widgets of who provides more value and benefit to society. I mean, this we see this now. Something that I do frequently is advocate against socialized medicine. I have two children with cystic fibrosis. I have another child with hereditary spastic paraplegia. I deal with insurances. I know the ins and outs. It's quite not fun. And then we see Democrats going to DC talking about insurance for all, free insurance for
Oh,
everybody. And you
geez.
see these appointments, especially during President Obama's administration, pointing men like Donald Bierwick to Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, or HHS, who, by the way, could never even get confirmed by the U.S. Senate, so his appointment was very short. Who had openly written in the Lancet, one of the country's leading medical journals, about how people have like this value they give to society, and it goes in like a curve. So until like 15, and then like after 45, you're the least valuable to society. So it's really, if
Wow.
you're talking about rationing care, you really need to make sure that people between 15 and 45 get the prime amount of care. And we see this come up all the time now. There's a whole thing about qualities that we're dealing with, quality adjusted life years of some medicine that my son and daughter take. It's about $350,000 a year.
Oh,
And
smokes.
despite the fact that it may allow them to live 10 to 15, 20 years longer, and basically changes the cellular structure of their bodies to actually act like they don't have CF, the folks that are in like, their Ivy Towers is like, well, I don't know if the benefits really, if it, the 350,000 a year versus these extra years these people may get, if it actually does anything.
Oh, that's so horrible.
But that's the outcome of this entire culture of saying,
Yeah.
you don't just have value for being you, you have value for what you're going to give me or what
Mhm.
you're going to produce for our country.
Yeah. It's one of the really scary things that I've noticed is the value that the society, namely non-Christians, have placed on
Mhm.
like animals, eagle
Yeah.
eggs, like cats, like
Mhm.
over a human life.
Yeah.
Um, I I know that we all say like liberalism is a mental disorder, but I'm like, no, really, how do you look at a frog
Mm.
and say that, oh, because that frog's extinct, there's a penalty for killing it, and you can't
Mhm.
even logically apply that to a human baby. What's the
Mhm.
gosh, what's the I bet you there's so many.
Well, I
What's
mean,
the
I
dump?
think it's how do you how do you explain that psychology with the psychology background? I would say it's the utilitarianism, right?
Mhm.
Well, the frog is cute. The puppy is cute. The turtle is precious. I get
It's
enjoyment
innocent.
out of, yeah, I get enjoyment out of watching them. And protecting them doesn't mean I have to change any behaviors of myself. Right?
Mhm.
Because it's
Right.
always, we always see this time and time again from like all the Hollywood people that are like, "Oh, save the environment, cut down your carbon
Yeah.
footprint," and then they all take their jets to
Yeah.
Switzerland for their big secret meetings about how they're going to
Yes.
change the world, right?
Right.
Because when it comes down to it, it's like, well, it's easy to advocate for things that don't require you to actually have to change your attitudes about things. And I think that's what we see with abortion is taking a stance on abortion is difficult because, especially for the young people on campuses, so many of them aren't living, what we consider the chaste lifestyle, or they're not having sex with somebody that they think that they're going to spend the rest of their life with. And
Right.
you'll notice this a lot. I'll meet couples on campuses who I'm I know that they're having, sex. I don't I don't ask these questions. People have volunteered way too much information about their sex lives to me because I deal with abortion. But then you'll see there's a difference between the couples who are like having sex, who are intending to get married and spend their lives together,
Mhm.
versus the couples who are, not really even couples, are just hooking up, and
Right.
they're even that. There's a difference. And I think that is why talking about abortion, asking kids to reevaluate their position on abortion is hard, because if you're hooking up with members of the opposite sex because you want to, because
Hmm.
you believe sex is a right and is fun, um, coming out and saying abortion is wrong, um, isn't going to fly, because in the back of your mind, a large percentage of women see abortion, even if they don't like abortion, even if they won't call themselves pro abortion, they all kind of have abortion as this get out of jail free
Yeah.
card. You only have
Yep.
one.
Yep.
And from the studies we've done, it's been really interesting. The pro choice women that we have studied, 18 to 30-year-old women who are pro choice, pride themselves on being open to people of all walks of life. It's very interesting. They all kind of see abortion as this one time use. You made a mistake, get out of jail free card. But then their like open mindedness and their inclusiveness actually ends when you talk about women who've had 2, 4, 6 abortions. They,
Hmm.
they'll we were doing this messaging testing, and these women were condemning the pro-life movement because in their view, they feel like the pro-life movement judges women who are in circumstances have to choose these terrible decisions, and then they feel abortion is like this bad choice, but to get them out of a worse situation. But then you start asking the same women who condemn the pro-life movement because they think they're judgmental, how they feel about women who've had 4 abortions. They're like, "Oh, that horror." It's
Yeah.
it's actually kind of crazy how young people think about it. But they all kind of see abortion as this get out of jail free card, even if they
That
don't like it, and that's what we have to change.
Well, and that's interesting too, because it's like they've taken their own morality line and blurred it and said,
Yes.
I don't
Mhm.
believe it's murder, so you can do it. But whoa, whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
you can only do it once because it's just naughty enough that more than
Yeah.
once is evil. But why is it evil after one? If it's not evil at all,
Yep.
right? Like drinking a soda, then how come you give permission, you and all your
Mhm.
authority give permission to your fellow woman? Oh, you get one, but that's it because it's evil, but not that
Yeah.
evil. So you could still have one.
Yeah.
And
No, it
and
doesn't make sense. 'Cause I'm like,
yeah,
if it's not evil, if it's just, like the removal of your appendix, then
right.
have as many abortions as you want. Like, why have I invested my life in
Exactly.
this?
Exactly.
Um, but I think that gets to the fundamental thing that it's written on the human heart, whether you've been raised with Christian values or not, that there's something fundamentally wrong. You get this sick feeling, icky feeling in your gut
Hmm.
when we talk about abortion.
Yeah. I
It
think.
just
Yeah.
this. Children know this, right?
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
have you ever tried to explain abortion to a 10-year-old? They like look at
Okay.
you like, why would someone ever do that?
You don't even know. So I had to do it the other day. I have an 8-year-old. He's turning 9 in a
Okay.
couple of weeks. I This is why I had to explain it to him, right? Because I protect my kids at all costs. I'm
Hmm.
maintaining that innocence. However, I was driving on I-10, which is the largest freeway in Arizona, and there
Hmm.
was a 20-foot wide banner across the bridge that said abortion is normal. So I pulled my little car over, drove back, and I tore that sucker down. I tore it down off the freeway and I put it in the back of my car. And I brought it home to my husband to show him what I had done. I may have committed a felony. And so
That was a
I took a,
misdemeanor at best,
I
but
yeah, certainly. I put it on Instagram, by the way, so I might be arrested tomorrow. But I spread it out across my living room to take a video of it.
Mhm.
And my 8-year-old said, "What's abortion?" And I went,
Mhm.
"Oh." I said, "Abortion is when a mommy has a baby in her tummy and decides she doesn't want that baby in there, and so a doctor takes it out." And he kind
Mhm.
of went, "Okay." And I'm like, "But the baby dies because of that. So this is not a good thing. This is a terrible
Yeah.
thing. Mommy does not approve of abortion. It takes away the baby's life, and God would never want that for a baby." And so he gets it in the most innocent way, right?
Mhm.
And there's gonna come a time in life when I'm sure he has more questions about that. Like, I'm so glad he doesn't ask, well, why would a
Yeah.
mommy ever not want her baby? Okay, let's talk
Mm.
about how evil people are and how selfish
Yep.
and self-absorbed. And mind you, I don't know if you know this, but like I had an abortion at 22.
Mm,
And it's one of the reasons I speak out because,
mm,
in my own opinion, I am the worst kind of person. I was raised in a Christian home. I knew better. My senior debate was on why abortion is wrong.
mm,
I literally got it because I was manipulated by an abusive boyfriend and gaslit into
mm,
believing that this was the only choice if I wanted to maintain a relationship with him, a normal
mhm,
life. He threatened to take the child and I would never see it, which broke my heart. Anyway, um, I'm the kind of woman that has no excuse for having one. My parents would have supported me and helped me. And after I did that, of course, I was never the same. And
mhm.
I never will be the same. And especially after having kids and looking at
Yeah.
those children and when they come out of my tummy and saying, women do not know what they're doing, because when you have
Mm,
a child, you look at that child and you know that there is a child that didn't exist because of your choice. Like there is a
mm,
human life, with a
mm,
personality and a laugh and a purpose and a name. And God created that person and you took their life. Like, more than anything, that abortion doesn't just kill their baby, it kills their spirit, the woman's spirit.
mm,
Um, and so I've always wondered why, God would allow me to make such a ridiculous and stupid and harmful decision for myself. But now it's to speak on authority. Like I don't come from a place of judgment when I tell women don't do it. I come from a place of, hey, let me tell you why. It's more than just about your baby. It's literally about you.
mhm. No, I mean, it's so sad to hear your story, and I would say you're not alone, though. I mean,
Hmm.
we see so many, I've met so many former Christians, girls who are raised in the church,
Hmm.
who say, "I knew abortion was wrong, but my parents wanted me to have the abortion," or "My boyfriend drug me to the abortion facility," or, "I knew it was wrong, but I was panicked." We call it like
Hmm.
it's this tunnel vision, right? The crisis of the
Right.
moment.
Right.
And that's why you'll see a lot of pro-life groups, have in the past advocated for legislation like 72-hour right to know bills where, women can go in, get, pre-screened for the abortion, but then have to wait at least 72
Hmm.
hours to like stop and fully process what they're doing. And the abortion industry
Right.
loves women so much that they fight against those bills because they don't want
Of
her
course.
to stop and have to consider the full
Hmm.
ramifications. And I know the messaging that works sadly so well with the young women we talk to a lot is just abortion hurts. Abortion
Hmm.
hurts is going to hurt you.
Yeah.
And even those on the fence, women on the fence, they will tell you that they know it's going to hurt. And so it's how do we have a real conversation with her that only not only shows her the hurt that she's going to endure now, but that the hurt, just what you so beautifully articulated, the hurt that you will always feel,
Hmm.
even after you seek forgiveness and are forgiven, but the hurt you will still have. And I
Right.
think, what a powerful, when you talk to your son, what a powerful testimony that's going to be, though, of,
Hmm.
your son knowing that, he could have had a brother or sister. And I think
Yeah.
that's why we see so many young people in our movement in the pro life generation, how they get, I guess, hypercharged and activated is because they'll join a pro life group, they'll come to an event, and then they'll go home and their moms will say, "Well, you you would have had a brother or sister."
Mm.
And I think it really hits them differently than, I guess, previous generations, to know that they're out there. Not only are they advocating for children's lives that they'll probably never meet, but they're out there
Right.
advocating for their brother or sister. And I
Yeah.
think there's some redemption to that. And I think it's powerful to see their voices come out there saying, "I'm doing this for my brother or sister who I won't
Hmm.
meet on this side."
Right. When I post about my abortion on Instagram, the amount of comments and then private DMs from women
Mm,
who have experienced abortion, and it's almost like they feel empowered to speak out and say,
Yep.
I did it too,
Yep.
because I shared. But it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to know that so many
Yeah.
women out there have experienced it and some of them are still looking for forgiveness,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
where I get to minister to them and say, look, I
Yeah.
can cry about it. It still hurts. It's always going to hurt, but I know that God forgave me and I forgave
That's right.
myself. But
And I
the
think
number of
anyone,
women,
that just drives me crazy because you think about the lies of the abortion industry and their whole
Mhm,
messaging that abortion's a good, abortion's easy, and yet we all know, you see this perfectly on Instagram, of the thousands of women who are out there suffering in silence because of that abortion decision, and then being gaslit by the abortion industry to believe that if they regret their abortion, if they're sad, if they cry on the anniversary of their abortion, or what would have been
mhm.
their child's birthday, that there's something wrong with them, that's
Right.
on them. It's not because
Yeah.
it's a perfectly natural response to a mother who ends the life of her child and having to deal with those consequences. It's because that there's something wrong with them, because abortion is quick, it's painless, and it's easy.
Right. According to the banner, abortion is normal. And
Yeah.
I don't know what else that banner could have said, but that specific statement, I mean, there's a reason I ripped it down. It
Yeah.
triggered me. It pissed me off.
Yeah.
Cuz and I wouldn't be that angry unless I had
Yeah.
been a woman who'd had one, because I'm like, don't you dare normalize this, because it's
Yep.
not normal. You're
Mhm.
convincing women driving by considering it that that's her last reason. That's the last little thing that'll push her over the edge. It's okay. Everybody
Mhm.
does it, honey. I mean, it's literally the everybody does it. And
Yep.
I'm talking to myself in the car going, it is not normal. It's not normal for women to kill their own baby. It's not normal for you to tell women it's normal so that they can be okay with it. And it's
Mhm.
not normal for women to do it and then pretend that it didn't hurt them. And
The abortion.
I'm curious. I'm curious if you have an opinion on this. These girls, and I can't think of one specifically, but that get up there and say, "Well, I've had an abortion and I'm fine."
Mm.
Like,
Busy
what's
Phillips.
what's the yes? What's the point there? Like, you can't be fine.
The the abortion is normal messaging is a very good, in their view, response to the problem, that what I was saying earlier, that naturally everybody has this instinctive guttural reaction against abortion, regardless of whether you call yourself Republican, Democrat, conservative,
Yeah.
liberal, whatever. It doesn't matter. Nobody likes to talk about abortion. Top of the mind responses when people hear the word abortion, the first three words people in their head associate with the word abortion are death, killing, sadness.
Mm,
And so the abortion is normal campaigns is their attempt to overcome this natural gut feeling. There was a movie a couple of years ago, probably 10 years ago. It was with the girl. She was like the crazy sister on Parks and Rec. She was in SNL. It was called Obvious Child, and it was like supposed to be the abortion romantic comedy. And it was in movie
oh,
theaters, and it was like, we're gonna, because they always, Planned Parenthood was always complaining like movies like Knocked Up always ended in a birth of a baby, and that
oh,
why weren't there
jeez.
any romantic comedies about abortion? So they tried to make it. It was. I mean, the production quality was pretty high. There was like this weird infomercial about Planned Parenthood in the middle, but the result is it's a one night stand. They end up getting together, but they end up having an abortion, and it was interesting because they tried to, after her abortion, they depicted this like sad vibe in the waiting room, but then every girl kind of smiled at the end, like the relief was there. But in the days leading up to this woman's abortion, for after her one night stand, the way they normalized it was she went to all these like older women in her life, and they all were like, yep, it's just a part of growing up. Yes, it's a little sad.
Oh my
Planned Parenthood was
gosh.
so good, so evil about how they wrote this script, because they didn't try to say it wasn't going to be hard. They acknowledged,
Hmm.
yeah, it's going to be a little hard, but this is just a part of growing up. And that's why you're
Oh my
starting to see this
gosh.
abortion is normal. This is why, chemical abortion pills, the Biden's weaponized FDA just said that they, CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens can all dispense chemical abortion pills. The next step is going to be, not you can, there'll be you must. And then the final step will be they'll be over the counter next to your heartburn medicine. And we have
Right.
to fight with everything in this movement's power to stop this from happening, not only because of the children's lives it's going to end, not only because of the women's lives. And these chemical abortion
Hmm.
pills are 4 times more dangerous than surgical abortions, 10 times more deadly than surgical abortions. They have up to a
Wow.
15% incompletion rate. They lead to injury, infertility, and death of women, and they are the drug of choice by abusers. But the overall cultural effect, putting aside the number of women that will die, the number of children that will die, their effect, their goal is to normalize abortion, to turn
Mhm.
every local CVS, Walgreens, right, any pharmacy into abortion facilities. So when you're there picking up cold medicine, or if you're there getting tampons, the girl in
Mhm.
front of you could be moments away from taking a pill to end the life of her drug, or the sick rapist behind you is getting the pills to hide his crimes. That they are attempting to radically normalize abortion in our culture, as they did in Europe. And it's to the point now where in Europe, the polls are completely against pro-lifers because the Europeans have just been anesthetized to abortion. And that's what's so different about the pro-life movement here in America, about, the fact that no other social human rights issue in the history of our world turns out more people every single year than the
Mhm.
American March for Life, is that we did something different in America, and that pro-lifers refuse to be silent. Women who've been harmed by abortion themselves have, like you, courageously come out and start sharing their story, and which
Mhm.
leads other people to share their stories. And that's what we have to stop. We have to stop these. I'm so glad you tore down that and committed probably that misdemeanor, because we have to stop any attempts to make it seem like this is a
Yeah.
normal act for human beings to take.
Yes. Yeah. And I think there is so much more that people can be doing that
Hmm.
isn't violent or criminal. But
Yes, you don't
when
have
you
to take
hear,
down
you don't
banners
have
to
to
be in the
you don't have to
military.
go to jail for the cause. I mean, I'm willing to, but um to say something when you hear women saying things like
That's right.
it's normal
That's
and
right.
everybody does it, and you made a point I didn't even think of, like never, which is rapists buying this pill
Yeah.
to
Hmm.
cover up crime, like it's
Yeah.
crushing it up and putting it in
Yep.
there. Wow. um
Yeah, we did it a few years ago. I had one of my male, so most of us at Students for Life are under 25, but there's about 10 of us who are, old people.
mm,
And so, and old people is anyone over 35, sadly. So Eric, one of our team members who's a few years older than me, I had him go into CVS's and Walgreens about 10 years ago with one of our 15-year-old volunteers. He was 45 at the time, and this was just Plan B. So this is a Plan B is 10 times, 11 times more powerful than a contraceptive pill. It's not the same as a chemical abortion pill. The intended effect of Plan B is to stop the ovary from releasing the egg. It can be abortifacient in that if conception has occurred, it won't let that new embryo implant into the uterine wall. But the goal isn't to abort. The goal is to prevent conception from occurring. So morally, it's different. But anyway, so we went into these drug stores, and this was before it was over the counter. It was over the counter behind the pharmacist desk 10 years ago, and
yeah.
we had him go in there with button cameras, and he would say, "Oh, I need to get this pill. My girlfriend and I." He's a 45-year-old looking man, gray hair in his beard,
Mhm.
a 15-year-old girl standing behind him. She doesn't say anything, right? Because that's what
Mhm.
happens. My girlfriend and I, we need to get a few boxes of these. We need to really make sure we get this thing out of her. And you can see the pharmacists are like, well, sir, you can only take one at a time. It's not recommended. And he's like, okay, that's okay. Just give me three. And they just handed it to him. They just handed him 3 boxes of Plan B, a 15-year-old girl standing right next to him, and he walked out of the store. Not one person. There was a one pharmacist in Steubenville, Ohio, who said, I can't do this. and I'll find somebody else who can. So she had a conscience clause exemption, and she
Yeah.
found somebody else who'd give it to him. But it was, I mean, this is just with Plan B, and no one
Yeah.
stopped him at all.
Oh, that's disgusting. And you know what's even more sad for me is the girl that said, I can't do this. I know it's wrong. But instead of calling the police, she just gives him, like, to me, you're just as guilty. If you know that it's wrong and then you
Mhm.
send someone else to help him do it, you're an accomplice.
And
I
that's what's so
can't.
sick about the abortion industry, because I'll bring this stuff up on campuses. I'll say, well, what about these men? I mean, there's a case right now in Houston, a lawyer who got the drugs illegally in Mexico, because now you can get chemical abortion pills from Mexico and they will mail them to you, put it in his wife's tea. The wife ended up having an abortion, unbeknownst to her. She actually, good for her, files charges. This guy was arrested for murder in Texas. This happens all the time. And I'll bring this up on campuses. Like, what about these women? What about these sexual abusers who are covering up their crimes? And
Mhm.
to the abortion industry, it's like, yeah, it's sad, but it's just part of making abortion accessible to everyone. Like, it's a sad thing that we kind of just have to accept in order
Yeah.
to push our radical abortion narrative.
Right. So if this guy was arrested for murder, isn't murder the killing, the taking of a life? So
In
did that
Texas,
not
it is.
did that not set a precedent? And I'm like, not that we're both lawyers,
Yeah.
but like, I
Yeah,
mean, I feel like that
it's
sets a
different
precedent.
depending on the state. So, like, this happened a couple years ago in Ohio, and it was like manslaughter.
Oh,
Um, New York. If I don't know if you remember, in 2019, Governor Cuomo signed into law the Reproductive Health Act, which moved abortion laws, regulations from 24 weeks, preventing abortions at 24 weeks and beyond, when children are born premature and live, to
mhm.
9 months. And they actually had to go back. I remember after that bill was signed into law in February 2019, they had to go back because there was a man sitting in jail who was on trial, who's going to be facing trial for stabbing his girlfriend and killing his girlfriend
Mm.
and their unborn baby. And they actually got to go back and amend the charges, because it wasn't double homicide anymore.
Oh my
He was
gosh.
guilty of killing her, and he was guilty of committing like an illegal abortion or something they
Right.
called it,
Oh, that's so stupid.
which wasn't a felony. So yeah, no, it doesn't make sense. Our laws don't make sense when it comes to abortion. I think
No.
about California, the abortion capital of the world, has the Lacey Connor Peterson law. So if you want to kill your child, you can do that. But if your spouse kills you and your child on the way to the abortion industry, your spouse goes to prison for the rest of his life on double homicide. But California says
That's
that's a
ins
homicide, but not if you pay somebody.
But yeah, and not if you choose to do it yourself.
Yeah,
So, okay. I want people to understand the violent nature of the difference between Plan B, which you just stated is
sure.
simply a preventative pill. It stops the egg
Hmm.
from nestling into the uterus and implanting, which prevents a pregnancy. Not that I endorse Plan B,
It
but whatever.
can cause an early abortion. And it
Hmm.
says that on the back of the Plan B box, because on the back of the box, they'll say, does not harm existing pregnancy in big font. And then on the other side, the right side, in smaller font, it'll say, may prohibit the implantation of a fertilized egg into the uterine lining. What that means is they change the word embryo to fertilized egg. If you Google fertilized egg, the word embryo or zygote comes up. They say the word fertilized egg so it doesn't sound as bad as human
Of
being, but
course.
it
Of course.
can, but that's not the intended effect.
What's the intended effect?
The intended effect of Plan B is that it stops you from releasing the egg entirely. So you don't
Oh,
release the egg, so no conception can occur. But if the egg has been released, usually, egg and sperm unite in the fallopian tube. So usually it takes a couple of days for the new human being to travel out of the fallopian tube into the uterus, where it implants and attaches to the uterine wall, where the child starts to develop the placenta,
mm,
the organ that sustains its life. And so what Plan B, the backup mechanism of Plan B, is it makes the lining it sheds the lining uterus.
I
So
see.
there's nothing for the zygote, embryo, whatever you want to call the human being, to attach to.
Tiny little human.
We
Yeah.
don't have any
So,
studies. We don't know, like, the incidence rate of like, okay, 1 out of 10 women, we know it happens because we all know women who were on birth control that when breakthrough ovulation occurred. And we know birth control has about a 9% annual failure rate. It's like 91% effective. But so we know it happens. We don't know the rate. There's never been in like studies with like little, cameras in women's uteruses to figure out how many percent, but that's
Yeah.
not the effect. The intended effect of chemical abortion, RU486, is always to end a human life that has a beating heart.
So it can be taken, if I'm correct. So these are the pills. These are the pills that right now are trying to be available in, or are available in CVS,
Yeah.
Walgreens, pharmacies. It's not Plan B. It's a different
Nope.
pill. You can
Yep.
take it up to 10 weeks. Is that right? 10 weeks pregnant?
It can be 11 weeks too. Yeah, it's 2 pills.
Okay.
Plan B is
Okay.
1 pill. Chemical abortion is 2 pills. The first pill starves
Okay.
the child. So it stops the production of a hormone,
Mhm.
progesterone, which feeds the child, allows the child to grow. Then the second pill you take, I
Mhm.
believe 2 days later, will launch a very painful cramping and contractions, which will help you to expel the child out of your body. The bleeding can
So
last
labor,
2 to 6
basically
weeks. You
labor.
can be bleeding for. Yes, it's
Oh my gosh.
extremely painful. Any woman who's ever been like induced into labor will tell you, how painful Pitocin was.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's extremely painful. You were told to sit on a toilet or go into a bathtub, and when the bleeding gets too heavy, and you can just keep flushing, which is from a leftist perspective, at some point you would think they would be concerned about that, because what you're doing is you're flushing chemically tainted placenta, tissue tissue from the baby, and blood down the toilet. So like the EPA says, don't flush goldfish down the toilet because it like changes the ecology of our water system. Yet we're flushing human children down the toilet, or they're going down the shower drain, and no one's asking any questions. And with chemical abortion, different from birth control, there are 3 active metabolites that, even though it's passed through your body, they don't go inactive as you evacuate them into the toilet. And these active metabolites are present in our water. So like there's an NIH published study I was just reading the other day from like the Nile River, finding how these abortion causing drugs are affecting reproduction levels of aquatic life in the Nile River. So that's actually something we are talking about. We have a whole website. This is chemicalabortion.org.com, where you can go, and there's a short docu-series of doctors explaining the mechanics of chemical abortion, how it's different than contraceptives, the risks to women, and then we're actually on campuses. We'll be at 170 campuses this spring with our This Is Chemical Abortion tour. And as part of the tour, we have water bottles where we're going to be asking students if they would drink the water. And then that next question will be, well, what's in the water? I'm like, well, let's tell you what's in the water, and that no one's discussing.
Okay, so this is so interesting. I had a gentleman on my show a few weeks
Yep.
ago that's created a water filter system for your home. And he
Mm-hmm.
made the same point, which sounded so extravagant, right?
I wonder if it's the
Not
same
only are
jar.
you flushing your baby,
Mm-hmm.
is it well, no, I don't think he did a docuseries. Nelson from Century H2O.
We just had a conversation with Nelson last week because we've been looking for a water testing plant in America to test our water. And what we have found, what Nelson helped us understand, we've been looking for 6 months. We can't find anyone who will test our water. And he said, no, they actually, these water testing treatment facilities will not test for all the pharmaceutical drugs in our water. They'll just say, yes, there's a presence. And so actually he's helping us. But yes, that filter, his filter is like
Yeah.
the only one. So when we start going to campuses, we're going to start taking his filter because his filter is
Oh
the
my
only
gosh.
one. That's so funny. Okay,
That's amazing.
keep talking.
Yeah, I mean, I had him on the. You'll have to watch the show because I
Yeah.
just am thinking can this be real? Like, not only are we flushing the human remains, and I got to talk about that too, by the way, but you're flushing the medication that killed that baby in the first place. So now that medication is in the water.
Yep.
So the
Hmm.
baby, the medication. Um,
Yep.
I
Exactly.
am
That's
so
so.
furious. I'm furious that they sugarcoat this
Yep.
and say, keep flushing, keep flushing. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
Why do you need me to keep flushing? Because I remember after my abortion, I remember being at the toilet and looking in the toilet. I remember looking for my baby's body parts because I knew what I had done. I remember being like a crackhead, pulling it out, putting it on tissue and going, is that a spine? Is that a hand? Like I knew, I think I was 8 weeks. So, there's little fingers and toes.
Mm.
I remember thinking I could get closure if I could just see what I had done. And then I could tell myself, you did it. Time to own up to it. Um,
Mm.
who does? I mean, who would ever want another woman to do that? To be sitting in a toilet looking for your baby, the remains of your baby. If you've lost anyone in life ever, heart attack, car accident, you know that, at least I know that part of the
Mhm.
grieving process is seeing the body. And it's like, okay, I know that person is gone. And to look back and think that any woman would advocate for that kind of desperate, um,
Oh.
vile, violent closure, that I need to see my baby's body in the toilet to validate
Mhm.
what I have done. Um, if the truth was spoken to that level, I would pray that even leftists would say, well, no, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Okay, well, that's what chemical abortion is, just so you're aware.
Mhm.
That's what it is. It's you taking a
Mm.
pill at home, alone, in sin, trying to hide what you're doing, um, giving birth to your baby at an
Mhm.
unsustainable life level, and flushing your baby's body down the toilet. Like, let's not sugarcoat it. That's
Mhm.
that's the truth.
No, it's. I can't tell you how many girls we've seen on campuses who have dug through the remains of their child and will have the picture on their phone
Mm,
and will show us what their child looked like. I think it's sad because the abortion industry, I mean, they've always billed abortion as a quick fix and this, solution to all of your problems. And then
mhm.
when it comes to chemical abortion, it's cheaper for them. They don't have to operate filthy abortion facilities that get protested. They don't even have to convince that many doctors to like be traditional abortionists where they're going in and ending and pulling apart pieces of a
Yeah,
child. So chemical abortions is like this, they don't have to pay for the disposal of the child, which is one of the things that they actually don't know what to do. There's like that's why like when Kermit Gosnell and other abortionists get um when the law enforcement comes after them, they always find pieces and jugs and boxes full of dead children because they don't know how to dispose of all these children. There's no actual protocols on that. um they build a chemical abortion as this like the ultimate miracle pill for abortion. And the chat rooms online, like you can just go to any pregnancy chat room where people are discussing, I don't know if I can have this baby or not pro-life sources.
mhm,
And women will come on and share exactly what you've shared. And
mhm.
women who are pro-choice will come on and say, I'm still pro-choice. I, respect a woman's right to choose, but let me tell you how terrible my chemical abortion was.
Right.
And please don't ever do this. I thought I was dying. I mean, that's a common comment we hear from women who've undergone this trauma is I thought I was dying.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
it's awful. It's
Well, and
absolutely awful.
the message now, to me, like the government does not have our best interest in mind. Neither do our politicians.
Mhm.
There's a agenda. There's money to be made everywhere off of these
Mhm.
vulnerable, scared women. So we're probably not going to win the political battle as far as getting abortion banned or whatever. So if the reality is yes, you do have a choice, then the call to action is please choose life.
Mhm.
Please, you do have a choice. Good for you. please don't choose to kill your baby. Like
Mm.
from a moral perspective, not a, you're going to go to jail, not
Yeah.
a, you don't have the right. Let's say now that you do have the right, please choose wisely. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Mm.
I want to end on a happy note. So can you give me, when then we're going to cheers, can you give me a story where you spoke at one of these woke colleges and someone's mind was changed? Someone said, I hear you and I'm going to choose life.
Yeah, I hear great stories all the time. That's one of the best parts about my job and why it makes it easier to have all the screaming and yelling at me. I was at my last stop from the fall semester. I was at Penn State. It was my second time there in a year. And this little girl came up to me. She was probably about 15. She had like a little notebook. Um, and she had these, and you could tell she was not, and she looked very leftist, I could say, right? And she did
Okay.
not look very friendly. And so she had this little notebook and she was like, had pre-written questions out after my speech. She didn't ask any questions. And I was just answering her questions and she was very respectful. She'd be like, okay. She wrote my answer down. Okay. Wrote my answer down. And a couple days later, I got an Instagram message from the woman who had brought her. She was part of Big Big
Mm.
Sister club
Mhm.
there. And so her big sister had brought her to the meeting and to the speech. And she said, I just want to let you know, she called me today and said that she's now pro-life and that she's going to be part of the pro-life generation. And it was so cute because
Oh my
I got a
God.
little backstory about this girl and her life and the very, very hard life that she has led in just, 15, 16 years here on earth. And to know, like, um, she came genuinely pro-choice, but with an open mind. And I love
Mhm.
that so much because that's what we want, right? We want people
Mhm.
who aren't with us to come and hear what we have to say and genuinely ask questions,
Right.
and genuinely try to understand because they some of them come and they're like, I just need to understand how can you be so wrong about this, but then at least they're asking the right questions. They don't come in and just start screaming. That's helpful.
Well, yeah, and from what I've seen, a lot of these kids, they come in with one agenda. I'm
Yeah.
going to try to make you look stupid even though I'm 17 years old. And I'm pro-choice and I just want to get up on the microphone and argue with you. And even
Yeah.
it's just amazing to me that even when you can sit there and in real time
Mhm.
disassemble their argument and they are made a fool, they still have too much pride to admit, okay, all right, good point. They're like, okay, well, yeah, okay, so I was wrong, so what? Like, it's like, no, not so what. If we're having a debate, then the debate
Mhm.
is I'm open-minded and so are you, and facts matter and science matters, and when you're proven wrong, you
Mhm.
must admit that if that's the basis of your entire argument, you now have to reanalyze your entire argument. And they
Mhm.
just, and that's what's the difference is yes, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm very clearly, I've made my choice, but my choice is based on science
Mhm.
and morality and biblical. um but you do so well handling them. It's like they 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 make themselves look so dumb. Are you ready
Yeah,
for a cheers?
yes, I don't try to make them look dumb. They do
I
it on
know you don't.
themselves.
I know you don't.
They do
They
it.
open their mouths and they do it
They do.
themselves.
They do. I'm ready
Yeah.
for my cheers. I got my water.
All righty, what are we cheersing to, my love?
The end to abortion and the saving of mamas and babies.
Love it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Kristan, you are a godsend. You're a brave woman. Everyone, please go to KristanHawkins.com. Her name is spelled Kristan, Kristan Hawkins. You can follow her on Twitter at Kristan Hawkins, Instagram, Kristan Mercer Hawkins, and Facebook is Hawkins Kristan. I so look forward to continuing to support you and everything you're doing in the movement. Thank you
Thank
for
you
being
so
my
much.
guest.
Keep me in your prayers.
I will. I will. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to the Patriot Barbie podcast. Follow me on Truth Social at The Patriot Barbie and Instagram at the.patriot.barbie. Subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with your friends. You can find this show, my book Targeted, and my apparel line on www.patriotbarbie.com. God bless America and God bless you.
Are you worried about spike proteins and how they may impact your health? Are you looking for help? The Wellness Company has an answer in the form of our clean, pure, all-natural spike formula developed by experts like Dr. Peter McCullough. The Wellness Company's spike formula includes the incredible nattokinase, dandelion root, black sativa extract, green tea, and iris sea moss. Even better, the spike formula by the Wellness Company is vegan, gluten-free, and made right here in the US, so you know that you can trust and rely on it if you're concerned about spike proteins.